All right, what's going on, everybody? Welcome into the Beat the Bookie show. Today is Thursday, November the 30th, last day of the month. Getting ready to get into December, bowl season. But we got championship week first, and we got week 13 of the glorious National Football League. Pretty insane week of football last week, the Iron Bowl finish, and a lot of the rivalry week stuff, a lot of controversy, a lot of fun games. But that Iron Bowl was stupid, dude.
Yeah, it was. I mean, that's that 4th and 31 pass. That's the best pass you're going to see all year, college or pro. An absolute dart, right? That's what happened. That's what happens when you rush just two men. But give Milroe credit. Like, Milroe wasn't the reason why they were even trailing that game. That's one of the most poorly officiated games I've ever seen. Lots of missed calls on Auburn. Alabama seemingly got the shaft on a lot of the play calls. And Nick Saban said so after the game. They said, "Do you feel lucky?" And he said, "Listen, look how many times we were down in the red zone and didn't score. We got penalties and stuff. Like, this is not luck. We made a play and we feel fortunate, right?" So I thought Nick Saban gave a great answer, but I was wrong last week about Michigan. I thought Ohio State would win that game. Credit to Michigan. Michigan won. They covered with like 30 seconds left. They didn't look too great either, right? JJ McCarthy's not going to beat you with his arm, right?
No.
And I think that's gonna come into play in the playoff games, especially if they play Georgia in the championship, as the odds reflect. I think that's going to come into play, right? You're not going to sit there and run it down Georgia's throat or Alabama's throat or whoever, right? You're just not.
No chance.
So it's the same story for Michigan this year as it was last year, I think. JJ McCarthy, he just doesn't have that deep arm. I just don't see it happening from him throwing the ball downfield. He hasn't passed for 200 yards in like 5-6 weeks.
But he's worn that bet shirt.
He has. And look, he's played well. They've been winning games, right? Their running game is winning games. And they got a couple questionable calls at Ohio State last week. Like, was that a touchdown in the end zone, that catch?
No, it was not. It just wasn't.
If that happened on any other spot on the field besides the end zone, it would have been an interception. It's crazy play right there. But we had the first half over for a parlay, so I took it. But you know what? Like, the Big Ten, Michigan, I don't like Ohio State. I'm not an Ohio State fan at all, right? Because I grew up a Hurricanes fan and got the 2002 national championship stolen by Ohio State. So I'm not a big Ohio State fan. But these Michigan, Ohio State fans can take solace in the fact that, Ohio State's carried the Big Ten for 20 plus years. Michigan fans, they talk like they're the 10-time defending national champions. They're just winning every single championship. The facts are the facts. The Big Ten has 3 national championships since 1971. Michigan claimed the national championship in 1997, winning the Rose Bowl, beating the 7th-ranked Washington State with Ryan Leaf. That's disputed also. They split the national championship that year also. Michigan, just like win something on the field on a national scene before you just want to talk like you're Alabama or Georgia, because you're not Alabama or Georgia. You haven't won anything in most of your people's generations that are Michigan fans, right? And we hear the same thing every year. The Big Ten's the best conference in America. It's not the best conference in America for football. They've got 2 teams. Penn State's only ranked in the top 10 because they started the year there. Penn State's best win is Rutgers or Iowa. You've got an Iowa team who fired their offensive coordinator, can't score over 17 points a game, playing for the Big Ten championship. That's how weak the Big Ten is. Iowa's playing for the Big Ten championship. They're a 23-point underdog. Their team total is a half of a point for the first half. That's
plus money.
That's how bad the Big Ten is. They won 10 games this year, and they're playing for the conference championship. It's a 2-team conference, Michigan, Ohio State. Other than that, it's a free ride, right? So same thing in basketball. Big Ten, back-to-back years. 9 teams. First conference with 9 teams to make the NCAA tournament. That got 0 to make the Elite 8. So Big Ten, they think of themselves higher than they are. Michigan, you're having a good year, but let's win something before you talk like you're Georgia or Alabama, all right? Let's see how JJ McCarthy does against a big, fast defense and how you do against a fast team before you want to crown yourself. So It's the same fan base they wanted Jim Harbaugh fired a couple years ago, right? So listen, just
Yeah.
win something on the field first, and then you can talk, right? Ohio State, whether people like it or not, Ohio State has carried that conference for the last 20 years. And I thought it was funny after the game, one of the Michigan receivers was saying that he looked over and he didn't see Ohio State have any dogs at wide receiver, like because they're wearing Louis shirts and Louis belts and stuff. Listen, like Marvin Harrison Jr. is probably the best receiver in the country. He's going to make tens of millions of dollars in the NFL draft. Ohio State's receivers have been proven to be 10 levels better than Michigan's receivers the past decade, right? It's like wide receiver you. So I thought that was kind of dumb to go after Ohio State's receivers. If you want to go after Ohio State's quarterbacks,
anything else,
go after their quarterbacks or whatever. Like that's fine. But their receivers, I thought that was kind of stupid. And now
I would agree there.
We've got Ohio State fans. They wanted Ryan Day fired after the game, and he's like 57-6 or something the last 5 years or whatever. And whatever, if you want to make a change, that's whatever. But 3 days later, they're politicking to make the playoffs as a one-loss team when your best
not
wins
happening again. Not happening again.
It's not. Your best wins on the year are Notre Dame and a Penn State team, who Penn State, like I said, they haven't beaten anybody. So to the Big Ten's credit, they are adding Oregon, Washington, USC.
It's going to be fun
UCLA.
next year. Next year is going to be crazy for the Big Ten. Totally different picture.
And what's going to happen next year is we're going to see a shift, whereas Penn State, they're the third best team now in the Big Ten, which is being like the smallest, the tallest midget, right? It's like you're not with
sixth or seventh.
You're not with the big boys yet, but you're like the tallest midget, so you're right up there, right? Next year, we're going to see them. Penn State's going to fall to 5th, 6th in the conference, right? Like Oregon's going to jump over you, right? USC possibly, Washington, right? A lot of teams are going to jump you. So the Big Ten next year, we won't have to talk about this. They're not very strong because next year they'll be strong. But this year, in the past 20 years, let's face it, they're not really strong, right? You got a bunch of slow teams, and going to the playoff, they're 1-6 since Ohio State won a national championship in 2014 in the playoff. Michigan's 0-2 the last 2 years, and they've gotten destroyed both games. So let's see what happens this year.
TCU mopped the floor with them, and it was embarrassing for Michigan.
They did, and the score was misleading. It looked a little closer than it did at the end because they came back and scored some touchdowns late, but that game was over at halftime. So, this year, will it be different? I mean, sure, Michigan's better this year. I picked Michigan to win the Big Ten. I gave it out. But I just
barring an Iowa upset, should be a win.
I haven't seen improvement from JJ McCarthy this year. If anything, this year he looks worse throwing the ball. So
because they've stopped doing it. They've stopped throwing the ball. It's crazy.
They have, but you have to. You would think to win in the playoffs, you got to throw the ball, right? And I would have thought if I'm the coach for Michigan, I would have JJ McCarthy throwing the ball the last few weeks, getting ready for the playoffs, but they haven't. So. We'll see what happens in the playoff when they have to throw. So it's going to be an interesting playoff, and we'll see if I'm wrong or not. But I just think the Big Ten is not very good. It's certainly not the SEC. So
we'll see.
Or the Pac-12 this year. So we'll see come playoff time
for sure. All right,
and we've actually already seen that because in the forecast lines, Oregon's actually a 1.5 point favorite over Michigan.
Oh yeah.
And the odds makers have Oregon minus 1.5 against Michigan if they played in the playoffs. So, that's what odd makers think also. So
I'm with them, man. I mean, I am 100% with them.
We will see. We'll see what happens. And I don't think this weekend there's any chance that Iowa beats Michigan just because Iowa can't score, right? So unless Iowa brings the trick plays out every single play and gets lucky and something happens crazy, I just don't see it happening. But crazier things have happened, right? So we'll see. Got to play the game for a reason. Let's get into the games. Number 5, Oregon, 9.5 point favorites. Their rematch from earlier in the season. Number 3, Washington. The total is set at 65.5. Washington won this game earlier this season. They've looked kind of terrible for the last 4 weeks. Oregon, they lost this game earlier in the season, but they've looked unbelievable ever since that game. What do you think? Yeah, we've seen Washington's offense has, suffered a little bit, probably since that game. I don't know whether it's Michael Penix isn't playing as good or teams are just starting to figure out that offense, but they haven't been playing as well. I mean, to give them credit, though, they did finish 12-0.
Yeah, I
So,
mean, gotta
so
give
they, I
some credit.
mean, got to give them credit where credit's due, right? But they head into this game, and the odds makers are begging for people to take the points with Washington. For me, I think Oregon's been blowing everybody's doors off. They seem to be set on making the playoffs. Bo Nix, if Bo Nix has a lights out performance against Washington, he wins the Heisman, no doubt. 12-1 Pac-12 champion. I think he would win the Heisman with a victory over a third ranked Washington. Plus, we've got Bo Nix 18-1 to win the Heisman. So we have Oregon at 40-1 to win a national championship, and we have Oregon at plus 550 to make the playoffs. So we're all right there for that. It's going to be a good game. I like where Oregon is at right now playing, and I just think Oregon's on a mission. Not sure I want to lay 10. Not sure what I'm going to do with the game yet. It's actually tomorrow, Friday.
Yeah, tomorrow night.
But I just want to see a good game here, and I think Oregon, they've just been rolling. It's tough to fade Oregon, but not really sure what I'm going to do yet. But I will be cheering for Oregon to win because I want that Bo Nix Heisman future and all the other Oregon futures that we have.
Yeah, great call on Oregon. I mean, one game away from making all of them cash. So hope to see that happen for Team Beat the Bookie. But for my selfish reasons, I want to see Oregon get in the playoff, man. They look so good, and I want to keep watching this team play. And, Dan Lanning, he's got them boys just absolutely rocking and rolling. So their offense is insane to watch. Washington used to be. I don't really, like you said, I don't really know what happened, but
and they're the second. Anymore. Oregon is Vegas is odds makers' second ranked team in the country right now. They would only be a 1-point underdog to Georgia. So odds makers have Oregon as the second ranked power ranked team in the country right now. So
that Oregon Georgia game would be a lot different story than the one 2 years ago. I know that much.
For sure.
Moving on, number one. Speaking of Georgia Bulldogs, they're 6-point favorites versus the Crimson Tide. Total is set at 54.5. I mean, I love the over here. I know I love the over in this game for sure. However, I mean, Georgia, I don't know, man. I don't know how to gauge this game. I just know Alabama, they played not so great. They got, like you said, this past weekend, the refs, they had a big hand in how Alabama performed on the field this past weekend. But Georgia, they kind of struggled against Georgia Tech. Now, I know it's rivalry week. Everybody plays up, but it's going to be a good game this weekend in Atlanta.
Look, Bama had a few chances to go up double digits. They had 3 or 4 touchdowns taken back on questionable calls. Auburn got away with some, they got given a first down on an illegal shift on fourth. On a offsides on fourth down when they had 3 guys in motion on a shift.
So stupid.
Very, very poor, very just bad game there. But like Kirby Smart said, listen, he's not putting anything into the Auburn game for Bama because he played at Auburn too, so he knows how it is playing Auburn. For some reason, Auburn plays well against Alabama and Georgia at Auburn, and then they just suck against everybody else.
It's crazy.
I'm not sure what is going on there with that, but they just they get up. It's okay to get
special, man.
It's okay to get up for the big games, but the little games you just get your ass kicked. New Mexico State beats you by 3 touchdowns. What is happening there? That's just a crazy. If I'm the Auburn AD, I'm looking at that game like, what happened? Why is our effort so little in that game? And then we almost beat the top ranked teams. And Georgia, they did struggle. I mean, they didn't really struggle. They did whatever they wanted against Georgia Tech. Offensively, they looked great. Their defense kind of just looked like they were kind of going through the motions. They held Brock Bowers out of the game before the game, even though he played last week. It looks like Georgia kind of just was like, let's just rest this game and get guys some rest and stuff, and just went through the motions, right? And Georgia Tech was pumped up, and Georgia just really wasn't. And I think Georgia just went through the motions. I don't think Kirby Smart, he didn't have that killer look on the sidelines like he wanted to rip guys' heads off. He was just like, let's win this game and get out of here and look forward to Bama. So I don't really take any stock into those games, and that's what people say, like, oh, you think the SEC is the best, but they struggled with Auburn and Georgia Tech. It has nothing to do with anything.
Right?
So
2 games with no implications. If you lose, you're out. If you win, you keep going. So, I mean, that's all it is to it.
And this will be a good game. I mean, this will be a good game. Kirby Smart's like the only former Alabama coach who has really, a track record of some success against Nick Saban.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody's been given the Tide a chance all year. They were 50-1 to win a championship after they lost to Texas. And Alabama's playing for a playoff spot, right? Like the winner of this game makes the playoffs. The winner of the SEC championship game has never missed the playoffs. It's the best conference in America, and I think we're starting to see like the wheels in the media turn towards that. Listen, the SEC is the best conference in America, and we see Kirk Herbstreit talk about it. Where if Alabama wins, if Georgia doesn't lose, get blown out, Georgia should still make the playoffs. We're seeing Kirk Herbstreit talk about that on some interviews. We're seeing other media people.
We never would have, heard it like that in the years past.
Exactly. And like Kirk Herbstreit said, you're not looking for the four highest ranked teams. You're looking for the four best teams, right? Because like he said, every year we've had a blowout of like 17 points or greater in the semifinals in one of the games. So we're looking for the four best teams, right? And that's what the committee does. They look for the four best teams. So, we'll just see what the committee says, but Alabama, if they win the game, they're definitely playing for a chance in the playoffs. And it's going to be a good game, and I'm just looking forward to it. And I definitely do like that over. Hopefully we can have a clean game this year, no injuries on both sides, because I know the last couple years in this game, we've had some injuries, like Bama receivers getting hurt and stuff. Yep. So hopefully we can have a clean game, no injuries. And to me, the winner of this game is probably the national champion, right? So, we'll see what happens, but I'm just looking forward to it. I think it's going to be a great game, and the SEC championship never disappoints. So
never.
It's the best conference in America by far, no question. Anybody who thinks otherwise, they've won 13 out of 17 national championships, and that's numerous teams winning that. So anybody who thinks otherwise, they're sorely mistaken. And if you think SEC champion is getting left out of the playoffs, I have a bridge to sell you, right? Like it's not happening.
Yeah, so. No way. Moving on, number 14, Louisville. Embarrassing loss last week. They got Florida State this week in the ACC championship. Number 4, Florida State. They're 2.5-point favorites. The total set at 47.5. God bless Louisville. Choke artists, man. They choked against Pitt right after they had that big win earlier in the season. They beat Notre Dame, and then they choke against Pitt the next week. And then they lose to the little brother in the state. It's
two bad losses.
Terrible. So Louisville, Florida State's got everything to play for. Even if they win this game, I still don't know if they necessarily are in the playoff. I guess it's just a matter of how they win it. They're undefeated, but their star players, injured. And it's a quarterback. Yeah. What do you think?
Look, the Louisville loss was so bad last week that it got Mark Stoops hired by Texas A&M for like one night. Right? That's how bad their loss was to a 6-5 Kentucky team, right? Well, 6-6 now, I think, or 7-5 at home. Just unacceptable. I think Louisville was looking ahead to this week, to be honest. I think they were looking ahead to the ACC championship game, their first one. And I think they got caught. They were playing, it was back and forth game the entire time. And it basically just came down to who scored the last touchdown, how much time was left. And look, Louisville, FSU last week with Rodemaker, like he couldn't throw the ball. He was like 12 for 25 with 110 yards or something like that. And they were losing to Florida with like 7 minutes left in the fourth quarter.
Yeah. Thought they were going to go down.
Listen, and it's not the Graham Mertz Florida, right? I've seen people like, well, you know what? Florida almost beat Missouri, number 9 Missouri at Missouri. Well, listen, they also had their Graham Mertz, their quarterback, who I've given Graham Mertz a lot of shit this year. I'm like, this guy sucks coming from Wisconsin. The guy had 20 touchdowns, 3 picks this year. So he had a really good year. And he's going to be their quarterback next year, unless he transfers or something. But he's going to be their quarterback next year. Florida State was facing a freshman quarterback with no experience. Obviously, they had a true, rookie quarterback himself and Rodemaker. But I didn't really see it from him. Look, when you're losing a Heisman contender quarterback, you're just not going to replace them like it's the next guy in, right? It's not the next guy in unless the coach is like Mike Leach, right?
There's no way.
So it's just tough. And FSU relied on the run game last week. Can FSU run the ball in Louisville? Probably. The Hurricanes ran the ball in Louisville. Kentucky ran the ball in Louisville. So if FSU wants to beat Louisville, they got to run the ball. And that's what won them the game at Florida last week. And I think that's what probably wins FSU the game this week. Like if the way FSU wins this game is if it's a 24-21 kind of game, right? If Louisville scores 47 points,
it's going to be very tough.
they got to keep their defense has to play great, and they got to keep the score down low, because if it turns into a shootout, you've got a guy at quarterback with very little experience, and I think you're going to find it tough to keep up with your running game pretty much. So it's going to be a tough game for FSU this week. But listen, if FSU goes out there and beats Louisville by 10 points, 14 points, and they're 13-0, and Rodemaker plays good and stuff, put them. I mean, I have no problem with them making the playoffs, right?
Yeah.
Like, because they would have earned it. 13-0, you won your conference championship by 10, 14 points. You earned it. Put them in the playoff, right? Like, what they could. There's nothing more they could do. But it's tough. I mean, you lose your Heisman contending quarterback. If that happened to any team, they're in trouble, right? Like, it's not just Florida State, right?
Yeah.
If Michigan lost JJ McCarthy and they
just run the ball every play.
Exactly. So that's what Florida State's going to have to do this weekend. So, if Oregon lost Bo Nix, if Washington lost Michael Penix, they'd be in trouble, right? And FSU, they lost their quarterback, and there's precedent for this because FSU lost their quarterback before in 1998, and they played Tennessee and T. Martin for the national championship, and they lost. They had a quarterback, Marcus Otson. He was the Red Rooster. He's just terrible at quarterback.
Red Rooster.
And, people will say, history doesn't really mean anything, but listen, it's happened before. And I guarantee that's stuff the committee looks at, right? They definitely look at history. I don't know if they're going to go that far back and look, but like, it's tough for a team to lose their quarterback and still play. But I think, since there's a semifinals now, I think that's a different story. But, if FSU goes out there and takes care of business, wins by double digits, they should certainly make the playoffs, but we'll see, the committee does. Nobody can predict what the committee's going to do.
Yeah, right? It's all luck of the draw with this committee, man.
And it's a weird committee.
To see. It is.
You got weird. You got the Michigan athletic director on there, which I think is a total conflict of interest, right? Like, it's just, you've got a lot of guys from smaller conferences that are like on there. You've got a woman journalist on there she's a journalist, and she covered Olympics.
It makes no sense. I don't understand
stuff like that for like the last 20 years. And she's an adjunct professor at University of Columbia University. I know it's a weird makeup of this. One guy owned like a furniture company, I think, and just a weird mix of people.
All the power.
So I don't really know what they're going to decide. So who really knows? But
we're going to find out real soon. Let's get in NFL. NFL's kind of dragging along with it being championship and rivalry week in college. But, we've gotten some good games. First one, Chiefs, 6-point favorites versus the Packers. Total set at 42.5. The Packers have kind of come to life. Jordan Love's come to life. They actually looked decent this past week against the Lions. I mean, the Chiefs, they're not looking that great. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, the Chiefs have not been looking great. But they've been getting the business. They've been taking care of business, really, and that's at this point in the NFL season, that's really all you want, right? Just get through these games, take care of business. Their offense hasn't looked that strong in the second half until this Raiders game. They trailed 14-0 early. They came back.
They look good after that.
They won the game, but look, the Raiders. I think the feeling of the Raiders, new coach and stuff. I think that's worn off by now, right? They lost to the Dolphins. The Dolphins had 4 or 5 turnovers, and the game still wasn't close. So. The Chiefs are rolling. I think they're just getting healthy. They're just getting ready for the playoffs. And the Packers, they have been playing well. I mean, I certainly didn't see them smoking the Lions last week.
No,
Jordan Love's been playing better, so you really got to give him credit. This game is at Green Bay.
Yes.
So I'm not like dying. I just look, if the Green Bay from last week shows up, they cover, right? But that's the first time we've seen that Green Bay show up all season. So it's tough to see.
What are the odds of them showing up again 2 weeks in a row?
It's tough to know which one's going to show up. So Green Bay's tough to back in that spot. Might be a spot for to tease Green Bay, right? If you can get them to 13 and a half. Something like that, but I'm not dying to go bet that game. But hey, at least we're seeing a team like the Chiefs on Sunday Night Football, right?
Finally,
I'm sick of seeing the Jets, the Giants. I don't want to see any more of these
Broncos.
teams. The Bears, the Vikings, the Bears, the Broncos. I don't want to see any of these teams anymore. I'm just tired of it. So I'm looking forward to having at least one good team on Sunday Night Football.
Yeah, I mean, thank God. About time. Moving on. Number. I do this every freaking week, dude. I always start off saying number. Lions, 4.5-point favorites. Got the Saints. Embarrassing loss this past weekend. 46.5 is the total. I mean, the Saints, Derek Carr sucks. The team sucks. The Lions, they kind of sucked this past on Thanksgiving. What do you think?
Well, listen, like the Falcons, they beat the Saints, and I think the Falcons are in first place at 5-6 in the division. If that's right, the division is complete dog shit. Derek Carr, he can change jerseys as many times as he wants, right? He can talk about. Seems like a nice guy, right? He's a real big.
Oh yeah.
He's really in the faith. You know, he donates a lot of money and stuff. Really nice guy. Just I don't want the guy playing quarterback for my team.
No.
Right. He threw a pick six, 92-yard pick six. He didn't even make an attempt to make a tackle on this when he could. I mean, that was baffling to me. Blames his teammates.
Yeah, he's not the guy I would want ever. Almost no situation.
I would prefer Jameis Winston over him if I was the Saints, but listen, they paid Derek Carr all this money, so I guess they got to get their money's worth. But the Saints, not really a big fan of. And then you got the Lions. I think 4 is a little too much. But listen, Detroit's coming off of getting embarrassed on national TV last week. So, yeah, I'm not really dying to lay 4 points either. So this game I'll probably sit out on. Might play a prop or two here, maybe a team total, but I'm not dying to bet the Lions on the road laying 4.
Yeah, absolutely not. I don't even know how this game made the run sheet. It was one of the more interesting ones though somehow. Moving on, Bengals, Jaguars. I believe this is the Monday Night Football game. So, if Burrow was there, this would be an absolute sick matchup. But he's not, and Jaguars are 8-point favorites. Total set at 38.5. Jaguars, they've been rolling. Bengals, Jake Browning, he's the guy, right?
Yeah,
he shouldn't be, but he is. Yeah, they just don't look great to me. The Jaguars are going to win this game. I don't know if they'll get the 8. 8's a lot, but we'll see.
There's nothing the Bengals could do. Like, you never anticipate losing Joe Burrow for the year, right? So Browning at quarterback, I mean, he did play a good Steelers defense last week, but the Jags defense at home is, they can be good, very good also. They're very fast, and they can shut teams down when they need to. So I just don't see I honestly don't see the Bengals even competitive in this one. And I think the Jags, they're playing better and better. They've been one of the best teams. They've been the best team. They have the most wins in the NFL since I think week 14 last year.
That's cool stat.
So they're playing well. They're very consistent. They have a lot of playmakers. They can pass the ball. They can run the ball. They can play a hard D. They check all the boxes for like a championship team. If they can just get a little more consistency from Trevor Lawrence, a little more consistency on offense, I mean, they could easily win the Super Bowl, right? So
scary.
That
comeback win against the Chargers last year was unbelievable.
And then they played the Chiefs well in the playoffs. So the Jags are right there on the cusp of being great. So I think unless the Jags have a total letdown, I think this is just a blowout spot I think this game could get ugly quick.
Good little parlay piece, Jags money line here.
The Bengals aren't the kind of team with Browning that's going to go up and down the field. Go up and down the field fast, right? So, this is a team that they'd be a good teaser leg, right? So I definitely think the Jags probably, like I like to say, pour them in a trash can. So
410 on the money line. Such a square pick, but if you're looking for a little extra juice on your lay, go for it.
But yeah, I think the Jags, they take care of business. I think they'll cover the spread, so no problem there for me.
Well, I mean, we got another good week of football coming up, man. NFL, I'll be watching it, but college, man, Friday night, it's going to be kicking off. Got a little New Mexico State and undefeated Liberty also happening on Friday night. So Liberty, maybe they'll get a little UCF national championship push. Who knows? They're undefeated.
Yeah, but they're not. I honestly think, look, New Mexico State could beat them. Diego Pavia,
I want him to beat them bad.
He's a wagon this year. Diego Pavia, he's been disrespected every spread this season. Home dog last week, right? He comes out with the outright underdog victory, 26-point dog to Auburn. He beats them.
Yup.
So he's just been a wagon the entire season. It's basically just been carrying their team to 10 wins. So I think he could probably get the job done, cover that spread tomorrow. But Liberty, they've been whatever. Like Liberty, it's just like they're not that good. They just played trash schedule.
The
right?
worst
So-
schedule. I think it's the 131st toughest. Scary.
So
So
it's
scary
right
they
up-
have to
it's-
get a new pool boy. Oh no.
It's right up there with Penn State's schedule strength. So, yeah, it's gonna be a good game. You know, we've got a handful of college games left, so enjoy them before bowl
Enjoy,
season.
man. The season just goes pop, pop, pop. So
It
fast.
does.
So
Now
fast.
we've got college basketball, so everything's coming together now. So we hope you guys have a great championship weekend and enjoy it. And then we got the college bowl package coming soon, so make sure you guys join us. But good luck this weekend, guys, and we'll see you later.
Yep. See you guys next week.